Good evening, everyone. I'm now calling to order the Thursday, July 14th, 2022 Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting. We have a quorum of members present. Would you please stand and join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First, I will ask if there's anyone here or online that has business to bring before the commission that is not part of our posted agenda this evening. Doesn't appear as though anyone here. Nobody online?
Nobody online.
Okay, so I guess we're good with that. Okay, would you like to do some of the pre- and post-hearing agenda?
Sure. So we'll table the approval of the meeting minutes until Chad arrives. So the first is just a update on the Red Brick Road culvert feasibility study that was done by Horsley Witten Group. They have provided the study. I don't believe I've forwarded to the commissioners yet. Is that, or have you received it yet?
No.
Okay. So I will do that tomorrow. I'll get that off to you. I just had a meeting myself, the DPW directors for Falmouth and Mashpee, and Betsy Gladfelter, who's helping us with grant opportunities. She's one of the commission members in Falmouth and the agent in Falmouth as well, just to go over the report and the overall recommendation, and you can read into the details of the report as to how this is arrived at. Was the recommendation is that the culvert should be replaced with a 8-foot wide box culvert, and additional recommendations to not impede flow or have flow restriction at this location. And what they found in the study basically was that the concrete has been undermined in some way. They don't know 100% sure what, but they know that it's caused from most likely burrowing animals into the embankment. So the structure has been compromised to a certain degree. It has nothing to do with the water control structure or the flash boards. It's the concrete, and that's why it was evidenced by this continuous upwelling despite the presence of flash boards above the water level. So that's their recommendation, and I'll disperse that study to the commissioners first thing tomorrow morning, so you can review it, and then we can discuss further. There's been no formal decision or action. This is just discussion at this point based on the study and the results that were recommendations of that study. And also, this is just for the immediate area of the culvert and the immediate embankments. As far as any wetland restoration, that's kind of a different story, because the towns own the road layout and the culvert, but they do not own the flooded bog or downstream river area. Those are association-owned lands. So there are recommendations in the report for wetland restoration, but that's, that conversation has to take place after discussion with the landowners.
Okay, sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. And just quickly, there's no new updates for the upper Quashnet restoration. Is still ongoing with phase 2 data collection, based on the recommendation, the decision of the commission to go with scenario number 3, which is full river realignment as provided by the Horsley Witten Group, and maximum wetland restoration. So we're still working on collecting data.
Yep. Okay. So we'll go to the first hearing.
Sure.
Okay. I'm now calling the 6 o'clock hearing for Juan Marichal, trustee, 100 Great Neck Road North, proposed septic system repairs, representative BSC Group. Is there a representative present to?
He's online. It's Paul Mancuso of BSC Group. Paul, are you on the line?
Hey. Yeah, can you hear me, Drew?
I can.
Yep, I'm also here with Todd McDonald, an engineer from BSC Group as well. he is more familiar with the septic components, but I'm ready to give you an overview of the proposed project if we're good to go.
You are. The chairman just called the hearing, so.
Okay. Yep. So again, my name is Paul Mancuso. I'm with the BSC Group. We are here for the proposed project at 100 Great Neck Road North in Mashpee. The existing site is an apartment complex. There's one main building on site which has the majority of the units, but then there are some smaller cottages spaced around the site. And the whole purpose of the project is to provide septic system improvements. The apartment complex is fairly old. The existing septic systems are starting to fail, and so as such we are proposing to improve the septic systems with some new IA systems that are nitrogen reducing, which will provide a betterment as far as what's leaving the systems and could reach nearby wetlands. The wetlands on site, we have the Mashpee River behind the apartment complexes, and in some areas some BBW along the Mashpee River, and then across the street, across Great Neck Road North, we have an abandoned bog system, which is flagged and shown on the left side of the screen. And so essentially, they'll be abandoning the existing septic systems and installing these new IA systems that are far more technologically advanced and nitrogen reducing, which will provide an overall betterment to the site, as there will be less nitrogen leaving the system once these new systems are installed. So that's really all it is. There's a few different areas where they will be installed across the site. There was some sort of constraints based on the existing structures of where these systems could be located, and so we designed the project to have them as far from the resource areas as feasibly possible, just because it's hard to fit these in there with all the existing buildings on site. And I guess one last comment: we have been approved by the Board of Health. The Mashpee Board of Health for all the proposed septics, so that we've already gone through their process and been approved by them. And so now we're here proposing to you guys just to improve the existing septic systems on site, essentially. And with that, if anybody has any questions, myself or Todd McDonald would be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to the commissioners first. If any of you have questions or comments, concerns for what you have before you. That's why you take a couple of minutes to look that over. I did hear that this is a IA system proposal. Is that correct?
You say is it an IA system?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, each of the three proposed systems are all IA systems. They are singular systems.
Okay. And all of the cesspools are coming out, correct?
Yes, all the existing cesspools are going to be removed in accordance with Title V.
Okay. How many of those are there right now?
There's a lot, because each of the individual cottages surrounding have their own systems. So there's a large number of systems on site, and we're compiling the whole site into 3 new proposed systems. So I don't know the exact number of existing systems to be removed, but what I do know is each of the cottages have their own system.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On the SAS on the south side of the property, what is the distance to the wetland across Great Neck Road North? There's no dimension there to that wetland. And I'm seeing all the other systems are, you know, seemingly towards the center of the property, but this one's on the edge of the property and there's wetlands there.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a figure for that distance?
Which system is that in reference to? System 2?
One on highlighting?
Yes,
on the screen? Yeah.
system 2 on the south side.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 100-foot buffer to the inland bank is the buffer that runs right along the edge, so it's at 100 feet.
Do you see that?
I see a 50
I see
right
a
along
50.
the property line.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see 100 foot. Okay, yeah, I see that now. Okay. A lot of information on this plan.
There is a lot, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, did
Yes.
you mention how many, he said, when you asked a question about the septics, an unclear number, but how many cottages are there actually in the whole project that are to be undertaken?
The number of units?
How many units? He said there was one assigned to each unit, and I don't trust myself to count them.
There's 10 cottage units, and then the one main building.
Okay.
The existing site has a total of 84 bedrooms, split up, between the cottages and the 29 units in the existing large building. And just another brief point, they are planning on modifying the use, which in turn actually reduces the total septic flow on site. Existing, there's about 14,000 gallons per day, and then the proposed design is for 9,860 gallons per day.
Any other questions, Brian? No? Tom? No. Any questions from the audience or for those that are online? Hearing none. Okay, this is a notice of intent. Is there a motion to?
Do we have any comments from Drew besides
Oh,
what
I'm
was been
sorry.
done?
My first night.
Yeah.
That's okay. I only had just one point of clarification. Just looking at this system number 3, where you've got zones 1 and 2 in this crosshatch area. Can you just elaborate what that area is? What's happening there? Is there any, proposed alteration, trees removed, anything like that that we need to know, just to get some clarification on what that crosshatched area is? What's happening there?
The septic component of that area is the perk-right drip system. So it's similar to a leaching field. It just has the pipes are connected beneath the surface, and it's just part of the IA system. I can see a few trees that might be interfering in that area, but the intent would be to replace the site back to its conditions once they're done installing.
Okay. So what I would suggest to the commissioners is that there be a condition worded to reflect, restoration of any disturbance to that site, because that's one of the closest areas to the actual river. And is there any regrading? So is that area going to be regraded?
It's going to be regraded as is, so there's not going to be any additional fill or any cuts. It's going to be, the final grade is going to match the existing grade right now.
Okay. But there's nothing on the plan or project description to describe how that's going to be restored. So I think that warrants a condition to have that information presented, so the commission can be aware of what's going after the area is graded, what's going in, if it's going to be a mix of native material, if it's going to be grass, which I'm guessing is partially there now, that it meet our grass lawn standards, So it's just a recommendation for the commissioner and FYI to the applicant that, you know, I think we need more detail as far as, you know, what that area, what the restoration of that area is going to look like. It just wasn't really elaborated on the plan or in the project description.
Okay, yeah, we can check out if any trees will be impacted, then we would definitely replant them, and we can get some photographs of this particular area that's closest to the river, showing what the existing conditions are. And I agree that makes sense to add in the condition that we will restore to pre-existing conditions, and we can definitely add that in.
No other comments? Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one other, just a question. I do understand that the septic upgrade is an IA system. Was there a consideration for any sort of like a wastewater treatment facility for this, given the mixed commercial and residential use? Or do you feel that this IA singular system and 3 different components will address the load here as far as nitrogen removal?
The total site gallons per day did not cross the threshold of requiring an on-site wastewater treatment facility. That's why it was permitted through the town Board of Health as opposed to the Massachusetts DEP. So that's why we went with the systems as opposed to a wastewater treatment facility.
And that's taking into consideration future use of the property?
Any increase in flow would require more Board of Health or at least approval. So
okay.
That's part of the decision.
Yeah. Okay. No other comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a motion to close an issue?
Yeah.
With the conditions that
Yeah,
Drew has
Mr.
outlined?
Chairman, make a motion to accept this project and as presented with the condition for planting mitigation and a planting plan for the zone 1 and 2 per Drew's request.
Okay. Thank you. Steve? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion amongst the commissioners now that the motion is moved and seconded? There being none, I call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes?
Steve?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you. Were you able to hear that?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I just may ask, how come Tom wasn't able to vote?
Not until I'm reappointed. I have to be
Yeah.
reappointed.
Oh, I have to be reappointed. Oh, okay. I missed that.
Now calling the 6:03 hearing, Town of Mashpee, 491 Great Oak Road, proposed improvement dredging, Representative BSC Group Incorporated. This is one that's continued.
Yes, yeah, it's August 11th at 6 p.m.
Okay, there's been a request to continue this hearing until August 11th at 6 p.m. to address the Shellfish Constable's concerns about the presence of invasive sponge in the area. Is there a motion to continue?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue the hearing for 491 Great Oak Road until August 11th
At 6 p.m.
at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion? There being none, I would call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Thank you. Use these new binders. Okay. Now calling the 6:06 hearing for Joshua T. Delman, 257 Monomoskoye Road, proposed septic system upgrade, relocation of sheds, and mitigation plantings. Representative Holmes and McGrath. This is a notice of intent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Matt Costa on behalf of Holmes McGrath, representing the applicant. We're here tonight under a notice of intent application to upgrade the existing failed septic system, relocate some sheds, and I believe there was some mitigation involved from previous activity on the site. Drew has the site pulled up on the screen, GIS map circled in green. See it fronts on Hamlin Pond, tidal embayment. Your resource areas for this project include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, coastal bank. There's a small salt marsh to the north, land subject to coastal storm flowage. You can see on the plan in brown are the two sheds. There's some dashed areas right next to those sheds that show their existing locations. They're going to be reconfigured to accommodate the new septic system. We're proposing a new D-Night septic system to replace the failed system. It's located in the front yard. We pushed it as far as we could from the resource areas. This project will result in a substantial environmental benefit after it is completed. We do believe the project meets all the applicable performance standards. It has already been approved by the Board of Health. There's a condition with the Board of Health. They essentially want this installed as quickly as possible. So I believe there was a 90-day requirement from the time that you issue your order of conditions. A clock starts for the applicant to have the system installed. That's it in a nutshell. We're respectfully requesting you issue an order of conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay. I'll ask the commissioners first if there are any questions or comments, concerns with the proposal.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One question. I see how the grade is going to be mounted up over the SAS there. I just wonder how that's going to be, how that will slope down to the front property line, and is there any mitigation or landscaping at that location?
Okay.
There's a minor increase in grades. We got an existing 5.3. We're going up to 7. It's just going to be regraded. There's going to be a fence installed as per requirement from Board of Health to keep traffic off the system. But the front yard's going to be restored after the system's completed.
Okay, there's grass planted there? Or?
Yeah, there's no need for retaining walls. We're able to just grade this out. It's not high enough.
Okay.
Anyone else? All set? All right. Marjorie, you okay?
I'm good.
You good? Okay. Okay.
I reserve my rights, but I'm good.
Thank you. Drew, can we hear your comments on this?
Not really much to add, just to reiterate the Board of Health comments. that septic design plan approved by Board of Health. Permit will be issued upon payment of the permit fee and submittal of 2 original stamped copies of the approved plan. And also, just for the mitigation aspect, I'm recommending a condition of a 1-year monitoring and maintenance agreement, submittal of a monitoring and maintenance agreement for 1 year. It's a relatively small amount of mitigation, so I don't think 3 years is necessary for this amount of mitigation. And no other comments.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public on this project? Doesn't appear to be any.
Nobody online.
Nobody online? Okay. All right, this is a notice of intent. Is there a motion to close and issue with the condition of the 1 year of mitigation, monitoring, and maintenance?
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion to approve the project as presented, close and issue order of conditions with the conditions for a 1 year mitigation, monitoring, and maintenance.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes?
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now calling the 609 hearing, Pompanesett Island Road LLC, 12 Pompanesett Island Road. Proposed renovation of existing boathouse, deck, and modifications to existing septic. Representative Holmes and McGrath, Inc. And this is a notice of intent.
Thank you again for the record, Matt Costa, on behalf of Holmes McGrath, representing the applicant. Again, we're here tonight under a notice of intent application to modify existing boathouse and connect it to the existing septic system. Drew has the GIS pulled up once again. You can see we're at the tip of Pompanesett Island Road, just after you cross the bridge. And I'm going to highlight on the screen where the boathouse is. Well, it's flipped to the plan. So there it is in colored brown. This is an existing structure. It has existed for quite some time. It has a solid foundation to it. So what we're proposing is essentially to rebuild the walls and put a new awning type of roof structure over the top of it. We are going to connect, there is a bathroom in there now, and we're going to connect that to the existing septic system by way of connecting.
Sorry, Matt. If anyone's on the line, can you please just mute your phone until your hearing is called, so we don't get any feedback or interference. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to flow out to a pump chamber and then pump that up to the existing system. It's rebuilding in the same footprint with no modifications to the foundation. There's no impact to the resource areas other than the temporary activities for construction. We do believe the project meets all applicable performance standards, and we are respectfully requesting you issue an order of conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll go first to the commissioners for questions, comments that you have on this proposal.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one of the questions for the applicant is that when you're talking about rebuild, you're looking at the photographs, it's looks like a 7-foot high concrete wall that's there now, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's a 7-foot-high concrete wall right now?
Yes.
So when you say rebuild, what,
The interior portions, new windows, and then there'll be a cabana-style roof on top of it.
okay, so the existing foundation's going to remain? so-
Right,
Okay.
right. The foundation is actually in good shape. They pinned it into boulders that are there.
Okay, so yes, so the wood framing and the...
Yeah, Drew's got a great picture right there. So there'll be new windows and doors, there'll be new siding to it, and then there'll be, you think of it as a cabana, there'll be an open-aired roof covering on top of it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just more concerned about the foundation.
No,
There wasn't a-
surprisingly, the foundation was in very good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, I've got a question. What is the distance that you'll have to excavate to get that sewer pipe from the existing foundation to the existing septic tank?
Drew, can you scroll back to the
Yeah.
plan? We're probably looking at about 100 and my guess would be about 120-foot long trench. See the line type with the double S's on it? Right here.
Yep.
That's where we're going, right over to here. So this line's about 265 there. So I'd say we're probably 150, maybe more, to get around the house. But this is very minor trenching. We don't need to remove any trees or anything like that.
Is it a single-day operation or two?
Depends on who you get to do it, I think.
We haven't had a lot of heavy rains anyway, so it's probably not a concern.
No, we are going to, just to note, we are putting in a limit of work around here just to keep people in bounds, so to speak.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions? No? Any questions from the public? Hearing none. Drew, comments?
Just,
This proposal?
yeah. Board of Health comments. Septic design plans to be reviewed by Board of Health at their July 16th hearing, or on July 16th, I guess. And not much more to add. This is meets the performance standards for a coastal bank. It is an armored, revetted coastal bank. There's no alterations outside the existing building footprint, which you can see the images here up on the screen. With the exception of the trenching for the proposed sewage ejector pipe to connect into the existing septic system, no foundation work, therefore no impacts to the coastal bank, salt marsh, BVW, or land under ocean. So I'd recommend to close an issue with typical boilerplate conditions.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to close an issue, an order of conditions for this project?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we close the hearing for Papaneset Island Road LLC, 12 Papaneset Island Road, and issue an order of conditions based on the agent's recommendations for the boilerplate conditions.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any further discussion by the commission on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Now voting. Brian? Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Now calling the 6/12 hearing. Lawrence J. and Judith Pelletier, trustees, Pelletier Family Trust, 37 Fiddler Crab Lane. Proposed after-the-fact permitting of a wooden walkway. Representatives, BSS Design. This is a notice of intent.
Yes, thank you for the rec. My name is Tom Bunker. I came prepared more for an in-person meeting with a colored board, and I didn't send that to Drew to put up on the screen. And I also thinking a Zoom where we didn't bring the. I'll bring the green cards in tomorrow for you. This is, as noted up there, after the fact notice of intent, where a boardwalk was started and halted along.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the right.
Yeah.
One moment. I might not have it up here. Give me one moment, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, the commissioners have the plans in front of them, so I apologize. I must have not forgot to put it up for display.
Well, I have a plan too, but you can't see it at this distance.
They've all got it in front of them, though. Yeah.
So the this property is toward the end of Fiddler Crab Lane on the right-hand side, between Fiddler Crab Lane and Walkway Bay Cove. There is a licensed pier, a dock, and a float out there. And as you can see in the pictures, I'll say that the resource area is within 100 feet. We have the land under a water body and a salt marsh at the border between Walkway Bay and the upland. Most of this property is in flood zone AE elevation 13. There's a slope up from the salt marsh up to the sort of the walkout level of the house, so which is most all 10% or steeper. So there's some coastal bank on the site as well. So on the bottom two of those pictures, you can see one has on the bottom left is a boardwalk sort of that's started and is stopped midstream. The one on the right hand side, or the bottom right, I think shows where it was intending to continue on. So we have this shown on our plan, the part that's finished and the part that was stopped or was grubbed out a little bit, and I think some of the timbers were removed. And so we're showing where the completion of that project would be. It goes parallel with the contours from the pier toward the south and then up the hill along the south side of the building up to the upper level of the yard outside the house, where they can get up and get to the steps up to the deck. So within the 5-foot wide mitigation lines, adding up the increase in coverage, we've come up with there's 175 square feet of coverage, including the part that was already built, plus the proposed part of the house, plus another 6 feet and a couple of steps at the top of this whole area. And the mitigation using the multipliers is 588 square feet. And we have shown on the 600 square feet. So it's basically the entire area southeast of the boardwalk, between this walk and the property line, which is, there's an overstory of oak and pine, but other than that, basically a grassy area, which it's on the far side of that. I don't know if you have pictures of where the mitigation is going. It's like be to your back. On the bottom left picture, be toward your back, I think.
Oh, right back here.
No, it's looking, if you turn around 180, I don't think you have the pictures of that. Actually, in the bottom right picture, if you look further, you can see the stakes marking the mitigation in the background. It's in that area out there. So it's on the, at the sort of the top of the coastal bank from the boardwalk out to the property line. There's 600 square feet of native shrubs going in around to fill in the understory under the canopy of the existing native trees. That's the proposal. Take any questions. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Marjorie?
Mr. Chairman, so forgive me because I've been looking at this all day and I'm a little confused as to where you were when you had to stop the work and come back in and reapply or apply. Can you just in a simple way on this map show me where you're at now and what percentage of the job you got done and what percentage is required to finish it up?
I can show, I don't know if you can see.
Well, yours has color and mine doesn't.
Right, well, I know that. So the color, basically the area that's parallel to the salt marsh, parallel to the contours,
Yeah.
is that part on the bottom left that's complete.
Okay, so that's the truck I'm looking at, right? And then this is already up there.
That's already there, the dock is already there. It's just this part.
Then we're at
Level part, yeah.
And that's the part that you need to finish.
That's the part from the, basically from where you can see the 6x6 timbers sticking this way
Yep,
on that
I
bottom
do,
left
yeah.
picture. It's basically from there, then it turns uphill.
Okay.
And so it's probably probably little under 50% done. The flat part is done, but then they want to step it up the hill, up to the,
Okay.
around that deck and up the hill.
So Drew, this one's for you. From an application like this, 50% done, application being done sort of post-haste, in your recommendation, will you say what the quality of the work that's already been done as a condition? Do you know it?
Are you asking my opinion of the quality of the work that was completed already?
Right, is that part of the process?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. And it looks like it's, it's just above grade walkway, and it looks to me like it's been done to code and is stable and looks like they've done a good job.
Okay.
So I don't have any issue with the portion that was
Not
completed.
an issue with recommending that it'll be same quality work moving forward?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Would the
Thank you.
building department have to look at that to,
I don't believe this qualifies for building code. I don't know what their.
I don't think it'd be considered a structure necessarily. There are no handrails required. It's level with grade, and there's no real foundation to it. It's just sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
So I don't think it followed. To file here, we have to file also for the building department to review it, and they didn't say they wanted to
Yeah, there
review
were
it.
no comments from the building commissioner.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Any other questions from the commissioners? No? Drew, do you have comments?
Not much to add here. It's really just a fairly modest semi-raised walkway or at-grade walkway adjacent to the existing deck to allow access to the pier ramp and float across the seaward side of the home. This was one of those situations the homeowner just wasn't aware of jurisdiction, so I have put a cease work order on the portion that was completed until they had time to file this notice of intent. And it is a notice because it is within 50 feet of the, it's within coastal bank area. Mitigation, we looked at suitable areas. I looked there with Tom on site to identify suitable areas for mitigation. The bank itself, as far as its performance standards, does provide a vertical buffer to storm damage. It is not an eroding coastal bank, nor would it be considered a sediment source bank or downdrift coastal resource areas, as this is a creek area of Pompanesset, that is mostly bordering vegetated wetland and salt marsh. There's no coastal dunes or beaches in this area. No impact to bank stability or water quality, so I do recommend a close and issue with a 1-year monitoring and maintenance contract for the mitigation plantings.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from members or of the public that are here tonight? Okay, nobody online is asking to come in? Okay, great. Okay, no further questions. I'll ask for a motion from one of my commissioners to...
Okay, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close and issue an order conditions with the condition of a 1-year monitoring and maintenance for all mitigation plantings for Lawrence J. and Judith Pelletier, trustees, Pelletier Family Trust, 37 Fiddler Crab Lane.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that motion?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Marjorie. Any further discussion on the motion? None? Okay. I'll call for a vote. Now voting. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes?
Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now calling the 6:15 hearing for Stephen and Catherine Marshak, Mashpee Treehouse LLC, 51 Timberlane Drive. Proposed renovation and addition to existing dwelling. Representative, Falmouth Engineering. This is a notice of intent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, for the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This is a continued hearing. We presented the project at the initial hearing. We went through all of the issues, and the end result of that last hearing was, at least from my point of view, that the commission was satisfied they were with the project, but we continued it for the sole purpose of getting more information from Glenn Harrington, the health agent, about the inspection that was done on the existing septic system. If you recall, there was an inspection done, and the existing septic system technically failed the Title V inspection, but because of the future plans for sewering and or other wastewater treatment options in this area, the health department is deferring any action or any need to upgrade the septic system. So there was an email that should be in your file from Glenn Harrington to Drew, and I'll just paraphrase it. It was on June 24th, and it says, "Dear Mike, you are correct in regard to the septic system. It was inspected as part of the Santuit Pond survey of septics within 300 feet of the pond. The system will be upgraded in due course. The Board of Health has not taken any action because of the sewer project. The dwelling is okay for 3 bedrooms, which is what the existing dwelling and the renovated dwelling will continue to have 3 bedrooms." And that was submitted to Drew. So I'm happy to go through the project again with you, but I think that was the only outstanding item. So I defer to you if you want more information.
Second, most recently submitted.
Okay.
So there was a comment, this was received yesterday from Christine Willander, who's in place of Glenn Harrington. He retired recently, so she's the temporary Board of Health agent. She's septic inspection performed on September 30th, 2021, indicates SAS and hydraulic failure. Septic repair plan must be submitted and approved and permit issued prior to sign off of a building permit. Property is not in a zone 2 and is restricted to existing 3 bedrooms. Floor plan not provided to be reviewed upon submittal of building permit application. So, were you aware of those?
No, that's brand new.
That's new.
In
yeah.
fact, you and I had an exchange today, and as far as I knew, everything was all set.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all set with us, but I think it still requires some conversation with the Board of Health just to get on the same page.
Sure.
So the only reason I brought it up.
Right. Well, that's in direct conflict with the Glenn Harrington's comments.
So just a discussion, to get everybody on the same page. Sorry, that's all.
Any questions from the commissioners? Well, I have a question. Would we look to continue this until this issue with the Board of Health is squared away, or would they prefer us to issue?
They didn't say anything about, anything that would preclude you from this commission from moving forward with a decision on this proposal. They are just saying here, the agent is saying that a septic repair plan must be submitted and approved and permit issued prior to sign off on a building permit. So if you want to see the septic repair plan, then I think a continuance would be in order. Or if you want to move forward and make that a condition of before issuing.
Right.
So those are the options. But I don't know, if you make it a condition before issuing, just keep in mind we have 21-day statute to issue, and the septic plan, I don't know what the timeline of that will be or what that conversation entails. It's just something that I'm just making you aware of. That's
Can I make a suggestion on a condition, if, Mr. Chairman? You could approve the project conditioned upon satisfying the health department and we can't proceed unless the health department signs off. And if there's my client's likely going to challenge that because we have inconsistent rulings by 2 agents. So we know that the sewer project's coming forward, and this is a significant expense to go through if in a year or 2 you may be on sewer. If we did make a decision to upgrade the septic system, we would have to come back to you for an amendment to this order, I would think. So I think you have a path forward to, if you're so inclined, to issue an order of conditions with a condition that the health department be satisfied, and if not, we can't proceed because we can't get a building permit.
Yeah, this could be through a communication issue given the recent retirement between the health agent and the assistant agent. So I really don't know what the recent communication was between the two prior to the last communication from the health agent. So there might be something, a gap there that needs to be clarified.
But if we were to issue tonight, there's a guarantee for us that the work wouldn't be done until the Board of Health is satisfied.
Right.
No
and
building
if that
permit.
required an amended order or something along those lines, then yeah.
Okay.
Required.
Yeah.
And if I could add to that, if it were mandated to upgrade the system and we knew the sewer was coming, my client may defer and wait for the sewer and put it off if she needs to. So your conditions would still be about construction of the addition, and that ultimately there'd be no new septic if they're going to just connect to the town sewer. We just don't know, but this is news to me. I wasn't really prepared for that.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Any questions from those here in attendance tonight? No? No other comments, Drew?
Nobody online has commented or on the phone.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to close an issue?
Okay, yeah, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to close and issue an order conditions with the condition for mitigation to replace the ornamental plantings within the buffer zone to the top of the inland bank with native species and 2-year monitoring and maintenance requirement for Stephen and Catherine Marshak, Mashpee Treehouse LLC, 51 Timberlane Drive.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll be happy to second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any further discussion on the motion that we have?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Were we going to add the condition about the approval from the health department for commencing the project, or?
I thought that the health department was going to make a decision because they couldn't get a building permit until the health department rules on that, right?
Right. They wouldn't be able to start construction without that building permit.
Okay, I was just checking.
So that's why I didn't think we needed to put that condition in our motion.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, they know, that everyone's aware that the building permit won't be issued until that gets rectified, so it would just be duplicitous to put it in as a condition.
Yeah, that's
not necessary, not a bad idea, but not necessary either, so.
You okay with that, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion before I call for a vote? No? Now voting. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Yes.
Okay. Set. Now calling the 6/18 hearing, Joseph J. and Kathleen C. Seulo, 65 Redwood Circle, proposed construction of 3 additions to existing dwelling and after-the-fact permitting of existing raised walkway. Representative Wayne Tavares, Wet Tech Land Design, Inc. This is a notice of intent.
So this application still hasn't received a DEP permit number. We fully expect it should come in by July 28th. There was a natural heritage jurisdiction that applies to the upland portion of this property. Typically covers the pond front, but in this particular area it extended upland, so there was an amendment to the application to include natural heritage jurisdictions. So that's just pending review before they issue a DEP permit number.
Okay.
So it's been requested to be continued to July 28th at 6:06 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, is there a motion to continue?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to continue the hearing for Joseph J. and Kathleen C. Shulo at 65 Redwood Circle to July 28th at, is it at?
6:06.
6:06 p.m.
6:06. Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion? There being none, call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Now calling the 621 hearing, AV Spivak, 120 Ventures LLC, 120 Fells Pond Road. Proposed dock and elevated walkway over existing walkway and mitigation plantings. Representative Wet Tech Land Design, Inc. This is a notice of intent.
Yes, good evening. Again, this is Wayne Tabaras speaking. We had some feedback from the last meeting, so we've made adjustments on the plan. Could you put the plan up?
Yes.
Bill?
One moment.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you want to take it into the pond, move it over a little bit. A little bit more. There we go. Oh, a little more. There we go. Thank you. Oh, this is the original plan, Joe. This is not the revision that I had sent in.
I apologize, Wayne. The commissioners have the revised plan in front of them, so.
Okay.
You can
Yeah,
proceed.
well, let me go.
Yeah.
Let me go with that then. It'll
Sure.
be a little bit not confusing. It's pretty simple. We were asked, one of the abutters mentioned the fact that that's a good picture. Why don't we just keep it there?
Sure.
That me putting the dock into the pond, Fells Pond, 24 feet was a little much. So we restudied the situation. We wanted to have 2.5 to 3 foot clear, as most towns require, including yourselves, of any boat traffic to the bottom of the pond for obvious reasons. So we took 4 feet off the dock. We have 4.2 feet elevation for the pond, and at that point, 1.1 feet. So we're going a little bit on judgment and a little bit on luck. Because there's a spot elevations when they do bathymetrics. So we seem to have 3 feet at a distance of 20 feet. Should be noted, adjacent docks are 24 feet long to the south, and another one that's approximately 12 to 14 feet in the pond. So we're sort of in the middle at 20 feet, and that we have noted on the revised plan. Another subject that came up was the footprint of the elevated walkway to the dock was good, but the number of diamond piers that were used were excessive. We had 32, and it was mentioned that it could be done better. So we've done a set of 30 steps leading to this dock, and it requires 4 platforms in between. We use casual steps, which are 16-inch treads, 7-inch risers, and it still requires 4 landings. Each landing requires 4 diamond piers to support it, so 4 times 4, 16, and then 2 down by the pond. So we went from 32 diamond piers. It was a good observation on Mr. Cook's part, reducing diamond piers don't do any coverage anyhow. They're a nice tripod system that supports docks, decks, and posts. So we're down to 18, and we redesigned the steps and platforms accordingly to show that. Also, at the end of the steps going into the dock, there's this tupelo. Shows in this picture, it's really slopey. In the middle picture, it really slopes a lot. I flagged it. It has to go in order for us to accomplish this. So we have to have mitigation. So I drew on the right side of the new elevated walkway. Please remember that the reason for the elevated walkway is to counter the old-fashioned in-ground railroad ties that were used prior. So we're mitigating that and then supporting that with mitigation planting on the right-hand side as we go down. We may put it exactly as placed on the plan, or we may pick better erosion exits underneath this dock for it. There's not a tremendous amount of erosion. It's just the way that the old in-ground steps used to work. So this is an improvement. Mitigation is on the right-hand side. One tree and one tree only is to be cut down, and the dock is brought back from 24 feet into Fells Pond back to 20 feet. I'm sorry about the canoe. I put a canoe there just as a sort of a reference in the pond. It's that canoe is 12 feet long, and I drew it too wide. It's 4 feet. It's probably a 3-foot wide canoe. But anyhow, it's just representative of what a kayak or a canoe looks like against the 4x8 aluminum temporary and seasonal platforms. We also agreed that the platforms, when they come out after season, would be placed above the boulder wall, and there's a note to that effect as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Questions from the commissioners?
Looks like the project was quite improved, Mr. Chairman, from the previous one. So.
A lot of those footers are gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Looks good.
I'm just curious, not for this project, but when you said the footers are gone, I thought this is a really interesting approach to solving all the issues, but is that a rule, a reg, or is that preference to get those footers out of there?
I think last time we discussed that there were just too many of them. There were 32 of them.
Yeah.
And they were excessive, that a better design on the stairways would limit the impact.
Yeah.
Because you still have to dig a little hole to put those diamond piers in.
Right.
So you go from 32 down.
But they don't get grandfathered in automatically if the owners weren't so cooperative. I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's no hard and fast rule on it. It's really just from an impact standpoint.
Yeah.
Look at it and judgment call, your discretion as far as what you feel would be least impactful, while still accomplishing the project goals. So it's,
So it's all good.
It's open.
It's open.
Exactly.
Wayne, I've got a question. I missed the storage area for the float in off-season. Where is that going?
Okay, the steps are there for a couple of reasons: access to the dock, and then when the dock comes out, these 4x8 panels would be walked. 2 people walking up the stairs and putting them above the boulder wall, between the boulder wall and the house. I think there's a word there that says deck.
Okay, yeah,
I don't have the plan in front of me either. So hang on, I can put it here. 1 second, please.
I do see that above the boulder wall.
Yeah, it says seasonal dock storage between the 22 and 20-foot contours and just below boulder wall.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Questions from those in the public that are here tonight? None? Drew, comments?
Nothing really to add other than the project has also received a DEP permit number, and I recommend to close an issue with the condition of 1 year monitoring and maintenance for the mitigation, which is very small, so it could be something that the homeowners can handle without getting into a formal contract or anything like that.
Yep, okay. All right. Is there a motion to close an issue on this proposal?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close the hearing and issue order conditions with the condition of a 1-year monitoring and maintenance of the mitigation for RB Spivak 120 Ventures LLC, 120 Fells Pond Road.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any further discussion? No? Okay. Then I'll call for a vote. Now voting. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.
Now calling the 624 hearing, Adam J. Decter, 44 Pompanesett Island Road. Proposed raise and replacement of existing dwelling with garage, pool, mitigation plantings, and beach nourishment. Representative, Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent. Good evening.
Good evening. Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering on behalf of Adam Decter for 44 Pompanesett Island Road. Tonight we've filed a notice of intent application to raise and replace the existing dwelling on the property. The property consists of the existing dwelling with Pompanesett Island Road to the west, Pompanesett Bay to the east, resource areas on the site from the waters, land under ocean, land containing shellfish. There is an area of coastal beach, an area of salt marsh, and then as you come up inland, there is a coastal bank with the top of the coastal bank right there. What we're proposing tonight is to raise the existing dwelling and replace it with a new single-family dwelling. A couple key aspects of the project. You can see there's a hatch partially in the green area. That is the existing deck. I have mats in this area, and you'll see that the new proposal pushes the entire site, the new pool and patio area, the new house, back about 11 feet from the bank, resulting in work within the 0 to 50 actually being reduced, with the majority of any new impervious area or building area or structure being added in the 50 to 100, which then triggers mitigation that is being planted along the top of the bank to provide a natural buffer to the site. So the project has been engineered and designed to the maximum extent feasible to relocate the dwelling farther away from the facility or from the coastal bank, and provide mitigation for the work that is being proposed. We've also added dry wells and a drainage component outside the buffer, but to manage some of the runoff at the front of the property, as well just the other site improvements for the project. We do feel it meets the regulations and is worthy of a order of conditions for the project.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the commissioners?
So one of the questions I had, Mr. Chairman, was the amount of, I know you're pushing it back, so the amount of new construction versus the existing within the 50-foot buffer, that's less than?
It is being reduced, yes.
Yeah, by how much?
It's in the table here. By 145 square feet.
Okay.
So that's being reduced, and then the areas mostly triggering the mitigation in the added work is in the 50 to the 100 buffer.
Was there an increase in structure in the 50 to the 100?
Correct. That's what's triggering the mitigation we've shown.
Okay. That's my question.
Okay. I've got a question about the septic tank. That's going to be removed and moved
Correct.
and connected to the existing D-box, and you're going to stay with the same leach field?
Correct, yes. It's a relatively recently upgraded Title V system on the site. And the reason the tank is being relocated, as you can see, it's partially in the footprint of the proposed garage, so it's just being relocated to the appropriate setback from the slab of the garage.
We have the groundwater elevations for the area where that tank is being moved to, or?
The, based on previous test pits and things that were done in the area, groundwater elevation was estimated at around elevation 2. This tank would not have any, the bottom of the tank would not be in the groundwater.
So the groundwater elevation is at 2.
Correct.
And what is the elevation of the bottom location for where the tank's going?
The tank, I don't have it on this plan, but the bottom of the tank would be approximately 5 feet down from the elevation 10, so at about elevation 5 would be.
Elevation 5.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question.
Yes.
So, I noticed the flood elevation 11, and I've seen some of the spot grades. Looks like it's in 9 and 10. Are the mechanical equipment? I'm seeing AC pads and a couple different units. Are there any mitigation for those units in a flood event?
Those units are proposed above flood elevation. They're at about 11.2. So we are proposing all required AC units, the dwelling itself, even the pool and pool equipment to be above flood elevation.
All right. So everything, all flood zone codes and everything have been
Correct.
taken effect, so there's no impact on in the event of a flooding?
Correct,
or
yes.
storm surge or anything like that, right?
Correct. The very detailed design related to the flood elevation and making sure all the required components are above that elevation.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't really clear because I see the generator pad and AC pads, and I see, it looks like this elevation 11 out to the west of or south of the generator pad. That's why I was a little confused with that.
Yeah, that contour 11, it blends into the wall, and basically that's the top of the wall, then runs along there. Kind of, it would be in the same, that 11 contour would be that edge of the wall in that area.
Okay, so there's no note on what the elevation of that pad is there?
No, but it is, it's between an 11 contour and the other elevations around the building that range from 1120 to 1155. So we You know, an elevation could be added to those, but the intent is that it's at about 1130, 11.3.
Okay. And same with the AC pads on the sides and everything? Okay. Thank you.
I've got another question in regards to the maintenance for the pool and the hot tub. I see where you have proposed dry wells for your roof drains. Is there a dry well available for the backwash of the pool or hot tub? Where does that go?
Yeah, I thought that was labeled. The one down to the bottom right of that, yes, that was intended to be the drain down for the...
Down here on the existing lawn?
Yes. We can label that as such.
So is that dry well on the surface, or is there a pipe to access? How is the backwash going to get in it?
We could have there could be surface access. It's not an issue.
I think you're going to need that.
Yes.
You're fairly close to the bay. And the pool equipment, is that housed? Is there some kind of a shed or some covering over that equipment, or is it, you really can't tell from the plan?
It's not proposed to be enclosed.
It's just going to be out
Yeah.
in the open. Okay. Any other questions? No? No? Any questions from the public? Drew, do you have some comments?
Yes. So I did communicate with Mark earlier, just to provide my comments to Mark prior to the meeting tonight. One of the things I just wanted to highlight to the commission is it needs, not just for this application, but there's been other ones and ones moving forward. When we see an application that is proposing to draw back structure from existing setbacks to increase setbacks, there's been a categorization of this being considered to be a mitigation credit. And in my review of Regulation 12 and the waiver section, which has the mitigation calculation chart, which goes by proposed new structure square footage to calculate out the required square footage of mitigation depending on the setbacks, that be used, which it was here, but there is no reference to, nor do I believe in my interpretation of the regulations, that by drawing back structure that you qualify for what's being called mitigation credit. While I do understand that there could be some benefit perceived from increasing the setback to a resource area, a coastal resource area, reducing the likelihood, reducing in some fashion possible damage from stormwater surge. But as far as any sort of mitigation or net environmental benefit, which mitigation really is centers on, is enhancement, I don't really see a credit in those instances. So my interpretation is that mitigation credit should not apply to the regulation, to the calculations for mitigation. It should be based solely on what is proposed in terms of square footage, even if it's set further back. You use the chart to figure out, plug in the square footage of new structure, regardless of setback, and that gives you the calculated mitigation. Just for further emphasis, you'd be drawing back structure here, but it's assumed to just be replaced by lawn, so there's no real benefit to lawn. It really centers on mitigation is all about providing enhancement, restoration, environmental enhancement. So for this application, any applications moving forward that make mention of a mitigation credit, I just don't think it really applies, nor is there such a thing mentioned in the regulations. But, you know, and particularly when you're dealing with these pre-existing non-conforming houses, which we see quite a few of, where you're already inside the 50-foot buffer or there is no buffer zone, that mitigation credit that's being used is further cutting into mitigation that would normally be required, and I believe is required, as I previously described, under the regulation. So my recommendation is to have the mitigation recalculated without the credit, and based solely on the proposed area of alteration or structure. And again, the regulation uses the term alteration, not structure. So these mitigation calculations are not based on actual structure. They're based on alteration, which can mean landscaping, hardscaping, structure for house footprint. Alteration covers all of those contingencies, all of those proposals. So it's really not based on structure. The terminology is alteration. So that's my main feedback on this. So I think that I don't think it should hold up a vote tonight, but I think that should be a condition that the mitigation calculations be revised to remove any credits that were a part of this proposal, and that a revised plan be submitted showing the actual mitigation without those credits. As far as the impacts to the resource areas, I believe it meets the standards. The mitigation will provide a buffer where there currently is no buffer, just to go to the photographs of the site. So looking at the seaward side of the home, you can see this is the current coastal bank right here. And you do have lawn currently going right up to the top of the bank. So here you can see the staking right here on the bottom left photo. This is where the proposed mitigation is. So it will provide somewhat of a buffer, and that may be expanded based on the recalculation and removal of mitigation square footage for as credit. One other aspect of the proposal, just going back to the plan, is beach nourishment down here. This is an area of coastal beach. And I can go looking at the satellite imagery. That's this area right here, highlighting. So it's a relatively small, is it 36 yards or something like that, cubic yards. Pretty small amount of mitigation. I just would also make a recommendation that a condition for beach nourishment require that any sand nourishment deposit in this area maintain a setback of 10 feet from the salt marsh, so we don't get into washout into the salt marsh from beach nourishment of sand. There's plenty of room to put the sand down in that amount where you won't impact the salt marsh, but I'd recommend a condition of that 10-foot setback for actual placement of the beach nourishment. And, building comments. Project is being sent to Zoning Board of Appeals. Doesn't give a date, but their next ZBA meeting, I would imagine. And Board of Health, dwelling permitted by Board of Health for 4 bedrooms with existing septic system, floor plan not provided, to be reviewed upon submittal of building permit application, rodent inspection by a health agent, and asbestos inspection by a licensed inspector required, with abatement if necessary. Required setbacks from the edge of in-ground pool are 10 feet from the tank and 20 feet from the SAS. Note the location of septic system, restrict equipment, vehicle traffic must be non-load bearing, H10 components. Access to all septic components must be maintained. No other comments?
I've got a question from your comments.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the difference between their proposed mitigation credit? It's what, 1280? No, 1282 square feet. If we did away with this hypothetical mitigation credit, what would be the new amount of mitigation required? I mean, how substantial is it? Do we know?
Don't know. That's why I'm asking for a recalculation.
Okay.
Yes, we did receive Drew's email and understand the request. I think it may add some additional mitigation required, but there is areas on the site, there's areas, I think on that picture of the bank, there's bare areas. We're confident to be able to achieve the goals that Drew was requesting in the modified calculations.
Yeah. There might even be some areas of beach grass down in that, off that coastal beach area.
Correct.
That could be enhanced as well in here.
Mr. Chairman, would it make sense to continue this to get the new calculation so we see the impact and add the beach nourishment in instead of, closing an issue in order and waiting for that? I don't know what the other board
Just to
members.
clarify, the beach nourishment is part of the application. It's not missing.
Okay.
It is part of it.
Okay.
I'm just making that recommendation of when it gets placed, it maintain a 10-foot setback with the salt marsh. Because it's kind of like an isolated beach area, as you can see.
Right.
It doesn't directly abut the water. It's intercepted by salt marsh, so I just want to maintain that setback.
Okay.
When it comes to the actual deposit. But it's your call as commission if you want to continue for receipt of a revised mitigation plan.
Yeah, and, then we can all see, I think it might be prudent to, see what the impact is on that.
Yeah. I also had a question about the beach nourishment. This is a one-time event, or how would you get access to nourish that down the road, say, catastrophic storm hit? It's a pretty narrow lot.
Yeah, we didn't, I don't think we specified anything other than a one-time event, so right now
I didn't
it's...
see a in perpetuity, so it looks like it's just a one-time. With that amount of sand, I don't know what, I didn't think to ask what the methodology was of getting it down there. I don't know if it'd be brought in by hand wheelbarrow or sand chute down the bank or something like that from the upland.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to include any machinery down there. There's no access.
That could be another condition. Methodology of delivering the sand by hand only.
Yeah, I
No
mean,
machinery.
it's so
It really
narrow.
is.
Once that house is in there, I don't know how you're going to get around it,
Right.
especially with the patio that goes right to the...
Well, they could do the sand first.
Yeah.
It might be
But I'm
best
thinking
advised.
later on, if there was a washout of some kind, then
Right.
how would you get in and fix it?
Right.
Okay. No other questions, concerns?
So when would be the next hearing date if we did decide to move this? Or would the
July 28th.
applicant be willing to do that?
I believe that would be okay. The applicant is online if he wants to speak up, but it would be July 28th is your next hearing. It's just 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll leave it up to the commission.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for, to continue this hearing till July 28th at, what time? 6:09 PM for Adam J. Decker, 44 Papaneset Island Road, for more information on mitigation plantings and the methods of the beach nourishment.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion on that motion? None?
What does this do, Mr. Chairman, for the applicant's project on the beach?
To continue this hearing.
Between the door and the speaker, I didn't hear it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And the mask? Is that you?
And my loss of hearing.
I'm just curious, the continuation seems to make sense, but I wonder if that creates a complete stoppage. I'm looking for an education here for the owner, or can they move forward with the sand and the whatever before they come back to us for the final approval to move forward?
No, there'd be no work.
No work.
No work done until there's an order in place.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, no further discussion?
I apologize. This is Adam Dector, and I just had some technical difficulties there for a moment. I'm wondering if it may be possible to, and again, I'm not familiar with your protocols and procedures, to actually submit a motion and take a vote this evening, and then provide an update to the committee on July 28th with an updated mitigation plan. I don't know whether that would be possible and appropriate, but it does seem like this mitigation recalculation and adjustment will be not terribly significant in terms of the overall plan. And that it seems like the rest of the proposal could be voted on this evening, if that would be acceptable to the commission.
I'm looking to you for some advice on this.
Well, it's the commission. I mean,
we have a motion.
You have a motion on the floor. Unless there's another motion made, then that's the motion before you.
Can you amend the motion, Drew?
You can. Yeah,
So, Mr. Chairman, would you want to amend the motion rather than have, it would all depend on whether or not you'd be willing to take it back, but to require that the answers as they come back from the representatives. In other words, to comply more with what the owner is asking without waiting until, I mean, in the summer, we all know this is a crazy time for them to have to stop a project. And if there's a good reason, let's do that. But if there's not, if it's a question of the mitigation, I think Drew's issue is one well taken, where you say, you know, the calculation, I would agree with you. If it's not formal, then that's a good recommendation to readjust that. But it's more numerical, I think, than either cause and effect or its impact on the environment.
Just procedurally speaking, if any commissioner wishes to make an amendment, you would make an motion for the amendment with.
And then talk about it?
Yeah, just procedurally, you know, any commissioner can make an amendment to a motion with their own motion and the reasons why, and then that gets voted on. And if it gets defeated, then it goes back to the original motion, which gets voted on, and so on and so forth until it's finalized. So that's
it's just such a complication what he was asking.
Right.
Procedurally, Robert's Rules of Order, I don't think.
Could Steve withdraw his motion?
If he wants, it's up to
And
Steve.
then we could entertain a different motion.
You could also, I mean, any commissioner can make a new motion. You don't have to have a motion withdrawn. You act on the amended motion, vote on it, and then depending on the outcome of that vote, it passes. If it doesn't, you go back to the original motion. Or the commissioner can withdraw a motion if he wants to. It's really your discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to speak for myself. I think I would be more comfortable with continuing this hearing just because there's more than one order of conditions that we're looking at outside of the mitigation, the 10-foot setback for the beach nourishment, for the salt marsh, and then also to Drew's point about how they're going to do that work, I think was another condition that I just heard him kind of say. So the fact that there's 3 different conditions, rather than throw that into one, I'd feel more comfortable moving forward with just continuing the hearing, because if we amended it, I would probably vote no, and I wouldn't want to vote it down and give them the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other discussion?
Well, I think Brian makes sense. Let me just say, since I was involved in your amendment, if you're comfortable with that, your amendment staying, your motion remaining on the floor, right? And it's got a second. And you're saying, Brian, you would prefer to move in that direction.
Right. I'd rather wait than to give a negative.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay, then I'll call for a vote on the motion that's on the floor for the continuance. Now voting. Brian?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion carries. That'll be for
July 28th at 6:09 p.m.
July 28th, 6:09 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can, yeah, I can relay that to them. Right. Right. No, absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The next, the 627 hearing, I have to recuse myself because Mr. Friedman is a client of mine.
Okay.
All right. And that also goes for the 633 hearing for Martin Bloom.
Okay.
So, sorry, we don't, just to let the commissioners know, unfortunately, Commissioner Chad Smith is unable to make it tonight. So any hearings moving forward that require a recusal of just one commissioner, we do not have a quorum to proceed with those hearings in the absence of Chad. So Tom is here tonight, but he can't vote until he gets recertified as commissioner. So just to clarify that, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, as I said, any of the hearings moving forward, that being 33 Nahoyden, 17 Taffrail, and 68 Monomoskoy Road, will have to be continued in the absence of a quorum for those.
Okay.
So this
Are there people that are here for those particular hearings?
How come 68 Monomoskoy?
I'm going to have to recuse myself because I'm the president of Seabrook Meadows Association, and that property is part of that homeowners association.
Okay. And apologies, this was an unforeseen circumstance, and given the...
So we can't do our thing?
Not for the purposes of this evening, just because there was a lack of a quorum. We had no advance notice, no way of notifying anyone prior to the meeting. This is a circumstance we were notified of one of the commissioners' inability to be here after the meeting started. So I apologize for that.
Well, so just going forward, because I drove an hour.
Can you state your name for the record, sir? Can you state your name for the record in the microphone?
I'm sorry.
We just need that for the record. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm Mitch Friedman on 33 Nahoyden with Mr. Baselli, and
Sure.
I came down specifically for this, and I'm obviously paying him, so I just want to avoid this going
Understood.
forward.
Mass meeting law, open meeting law prohibits us from, the commission from proceeding in the absence of a quorum. It's state law. There's no way around it. I do apologize. I know it's unfortunate, but the commission can't proceed in the absence of a quorum to deliberate over a hearing. And that would be the case tonight because of a recusal and then the absence of another commissioner who would make up that quorum.
So is there anything we can get done tonight?
Can't open the hearing in the absence of a quorum.
Wasted. Okay. Because obviously I have to pay him and drive down, and it's just
You can, please, language, sir.
I'm sorry.
It's a public meeting. You can participate via Zoom remotely, so you won't have to make the trip down again. We do have that hybrid option for you. And again, apologies for this. It was just an unforeseen circumstance.
Okay, all right.
So in regards to next steps, are those going to be moved to the July 28th also?
Correct. We need to do one at a time but those, starting with this one, need to be continued.
So Chad was supposed to be here, and then after the meeting started,
He notified us by text he wasn't going to make it.
Okay, that's, I was wondering what was going on, yeah. Yeah, because if he was here, it would have been a problem.
He was here, you would be able to proceed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's why I sent you an email.
That's why we expected that, but it was just an unforeseen circumstance.
Okay.
Bummer.
So,
For him.
should I open those hearings for continuance?
Yeah, open and then for continuance, correct.
All right. Let me just clean up for a second.
Sure.
What time would we move in this one to?
We'll set each one, Brian. I'll just open the hearing and set it as a continuance. Okay. Okay, so I'll call the 6/27 hearing for Mitchell Friedman, 33 Hoyden Road, proposed construction of new single-family dwelling, Title V septic system, Representative Falmouth Engineering, notice of intent. For lack of a quorum, we will continue this hearing until July 28th at
6:12 p.m.
6:12 p.m. Do we need to vote on that or no? We do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move to continue the hearing for Mitchell Friedman at 33 Nahoden Road to July 28th at 6:12 p.m.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Further discussion? Now voting. Brian?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Steve, you can't vote on this, correct? You're recused.
I can't, yeah.
No.
So
It has to be continued, so it's.
I'll vote yes. So we have a majority of people that can vote.
Correct.
All right, so the motion would then carry.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Now calling the 6:30 hearing, Kevin A. and Denise J. Petiti, trustees, 58 Triton Way, proposed raise and replace of existing pool and decks, Representative Down Cape Engineering. This is a notice of intent.
Good evening. For the record, Danny Gonzalez, professional engineer with Down Cape Engineering, here on behalf of the Petitis.
Sorry, the microphone's a little sensitive tonight.
Kevin, who's in the audience, if you have any specific questions for the homeowner. But what we have here is a single-family dwelling bordered on Nantucket Sound to the southeast. There's a coastal bank that is partially armored with a rock revetment. We are in land subject to coastal storm flowage here, velocity elevation 23, velocity zone. The rest of the properties in the zone X, minimal flood hazard. What we're proposing to do is to basically raise and replace the existing deck and pool area in the backyard, kind of maximize the efficiency of that space a little better. I did talk to Drew earlier today, as with one of the other previous applications, about the hardscape and not taking credit for removing hardscape, which his point was well taken. I don't have a revised plan for you with calculations, but I did do the calculations, which would result in a 217 square foot area of mitigation that would be required if we only counted the areas of new hardscape that we're proposing. I will note that there is a net decrease of 330 square feet of deck that we're removing out of there. We are getting a little bit further away from that coastal bank, so, you know, while it may be the opinion of Drew and maybe possibly the commission too, that removal of hardscape doesn't count for mitigation, I think it does provide some net benefit, but I did speak with the homeowner. He's happy to provide the 217 square feet of mitigation for the added hardscape, and if you wanted to make that a condition upon approval, we could certainly provide a plan that shows that area and some plantings for you along the top of that coastal bank. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, is this similar to our last one with the mitigation credit that you talked
It is
about?
the same, yeah, same scenario, not quite as large a scope project as the other one, which is a complete raise and replace. This is pool deck only. I don't know if that makes any difference, but it's not, the scope of project isn't as large as that. But, and they have calculated the mitigation already.
Okay.
if that makes any difference.
So you're fine with the mitigation cap?
Yeah, I think so. There were other conditions too, as Brian mentioned, in the 44 up in Esset Island that warranted a continuance, not just the mitigation.
Right.
This one doesn't have any other concerns.
Okay.
Which I can make known when you complete your discussion.
Okay.
Okay. And where would be the location? It was 271 square feet?
So there's a net increase of 77 square feet between the rework decks. I don't know if you can see all the way from over there, but
I've got the plan.
Yeah, this is a little bit different. I highlighted it.
Oh, okay.
So the green areas,
Yep.
that's the new hardscape.
Okay.
And that, based on the calculations and in relation to the top of that coastal bank would result in a 217 square foot area of mitigation that would be required.
217.
That we're willing to provide.
Any other questions? No? Questions from the public? No? Other comments, Drew?
Just one other comment, and we talked about this on the phone, was just the abutter. Wanted just for us to make mention that we want to just make sure that if this is approved, that there be no encroachment onto the property. I don't know for sure if there is current encroachment, but he's just bringing it up as a concern when it comes to the rebuild, that it remain entirely on the subject property. So
Yes, yep.
I'm sure the neighbors will work that out.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to talk to the surveyor and
Sure.
see, how much of an encroachment, if any, but it's very tough to tell. There's a lot of lines along that kind of southwesterly property line there.
Right.
Everything is very close. We are pulling it back about 6 inches from what it is now, the proposed pool deck. So if we need to.
You can see just from the satellite imagery, they're right up against each other.
Really?
Yeah, you can see just from the.
If we need to pull it back, we're certainly willing to. We do need to file with the ZBA.
Right.
So they'll review this, and I'm sure they'll have some comments on that as well.
Sure.
So.
I think the owner just wanted the homeowner to be aware.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think he had his hand up, the owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to, sorry. Oh, you want to come up to the mic, sir, and just give your name for the record? Thank you.
Just quickly, my name is Kevin Petiti. I'm the owner of the property, my wife and I, and the abutter is John Shamari. He's a nice guy. The people who owned the property own both properties. That's why they probably mitigated some of the issues between the property lines. And I would absolutely make certain we're far enough to make John happy and everybody happy. So.
Yeah, it's a connecting boardwalk.
Yeah, there's steps going down. It used to be, I'm sure it was quite a place back then, So, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? No?
Well, I have one concern, Mr. Chairman, with the plan with the pool, and looks like, is there a fence there between on the outside on the property line there, where that says the 5.9 feet from the corner of the pool?
So right now, there's a retaining wall on the abutting property, and the slope kind of goes up. So it'd be very hard to kind of climb that area. So there is a fence currently right on the other side of that, on the second picture on the right, top right.
Right, so that's the
Yeah.
fence. That's the fence right along the property line.
And right on the other side of that is the neighbor's retaining wall.
Okay, so, all right, I saw that. So is there any construction issues with being right on the property line, trying to?
We're pulling it back further. I don't anticipate that. I don't know if they plan to use the existing supports or if they can, but
Okay.
certainly we don't want to undermine the neighbor's retaining wall, so we'll
Yeah, that was
take.
just my concern. Everything's right on top of each other. There's no room to maneuver in there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've got a question. How is that existing pool maintained? What do you do to backwash out of the system?
That's a good question.
What was the question?
My concern was that, the pool's going to be moved a little bit. It's a different pool that's going in, correct?
Correct.
And I'm wondering, how did you deal with the existing pool as far as maintenance, backwashing and filters?
The pool's been shut down for several years.
Oh, it's been shut down?
Yeah, so there's going to be new equipment brought on the other side of the fence.
On the other side.
Brought in to do.
And will there be a dry well of some type up there to accept any backwashed waters from the filters?
I'm not certain. Valor Pool is the company we've hired to commence with the work. They're more than qualified, sir. They would do whatever mitigation there was with respect to any backwash or things of that nature.
Right.
That could be a condition too, to contain any.
Yeah, it's right there near the water.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'd like to see some plan for the maintenance of that pool. I'm just concerned about the closeness to the water. You don't want that stuff running over the land and down.
We certainly agree. We agree.
Yeah.
We can speak to Bella and ask them about what their intentions are.
Okay.
And there's enough room on the, landward side of the 50-foot off the bank to put it, so it doesn't necessarily need to go any closer to the coastal bank than the existing pool, if that makes a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Call for a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, make a motion for Kevin A. and Denise J. Petiti, trustees, 58 Triton Way, to close and issue order conditions with the condition for to show on a plan for dry well and how to handle the pool backwash.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion on the motion? There being none, I will call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, it's another one that we have to continue. I'm going to call the 6:33 hearing. Martin A. Bloom, trustee, 17 Taffrail Way. Proposed renovations to existing single-family dwelling, including replacement and reconfiguration of existing decks. Representative Down Cape Engineering, Inc. This is a notice of intent. We do not have a quorum in place to open this hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself on this hearing.
Thank you, Steve. So is there a motion to continue?
What time would it be?
That would be July 28th at 6:15.
I move to continue the hearing for Martin A. Bloom, trustee at 17 Taffrail Way, to July 28th at 6:15 p.m.
Thank you, Brian. Second?
Second?
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion on that continuance? There being none, I'll call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Okay. Now calling the 6:36 hearing, Michael and Helen Sharp, trustees, 55 Shoestring Bay Road. Proposed after-the-fact landscape retaining wall and proposed mitigation plantings. Representative BSS Design. This is a notice of intent. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design. And here representing the Sharps, several years ago, we did a NOI to expand the decks on the water side of the property, and recently did a compliance plan, did a survey for compliance, and found that there had been a non-approved retaining wall built. So at this property, it fronts on Shoestring Bay. There's a salt marsh along the bottom of the slope, and the slope is flood zone elevation AE, flood zone AE elevation 11, reaches the top of the bank, and the bank in general is more than a 4-to-1 slope, and so this is a case where the coastal bank runs all the way up the slope, basically all the way up to the house. There's a flat area up toward the house. So if you have the plan there, there's a sorry,
I'll bring it back up here. This is one of the annoying features about Zoom. This is drop down menu and trying to bring up PDFs. You have to wait for it to go away. Which sometimes it does.
Huh.
Now it's not choosing not to go away.
There it is. Oh. There.
There it is. Magic.
Tom, if you turn the microphone slightly away from you, you'll probably get the less feedback.
This one here?
Yeah, there you go. I don't know why it's doing that. It's just seems to work better when it's not facing.
Okay. I saw you turn that one away. I didn't.
Between the PDF and AP, it just doesn't seem fair.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So on this plan here, up toward the top of the hill, just behind the house, there is that area there, and there's been a timber retaining wall built, which is a 3-sided retaining wall. It's a total of 80 feet long, and it was basically that bank is steep, and it just made a semi-flat area, I think, where people could walk out. It's not actually considered coverage. The topography there changed, so it was an alteration of the landform in that location, but it was planted with grass. There were some shrubs and some other flowers in there, and the timber retaining wall, which the wall itself is only about 37 square feet of coverage. The change in topography in the confines of the wall was about 630 square feet. And so when about more than a month ago, when compliance was issued for this, there was a condition that we come back with a plan to propose mitigation planting for this change in the landform. And so down toward the bottom of the bank, we have 2 areas of mitigation planting, which is a total of 750 square feet of native shrubs. It's not all the way to the bottom because that's kind of a level, almost a walking path along there. So I put that planting here just uphill a little bit from there, but it's 750 square feet, which I think is good considering it's 120 square feet more than the amount of landform that was altered, but it's also the coverage that was put in. If you count the surface area of that retaining wall, is only 37 square feet. So relative to the change, I think there's quite a bit of new native shrubs being put in. Again, like on the other project, this would be for some understory, and it's under existing native trees that have a crown, a canopy above this. That's the proposal. Take any questions about it.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commissioners? Concerns? No. Hearing none?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to.
Oh, sorry, I did have one.
Drew's comments before.
Drew's comments, sorry, Drew, cut you off.
No problem.
The gun.
So as Tom described, this is just an after-the-fact mitigation to deal with a landscaping feature, a hardscaping feature that was put in without a permit. It is something, the reason I had it come recommended for a notice of intent is because I believe it would be a type of project that would be reviewed by the commission and qualify for required mitigation. So this is just after the fact to bring that into compliance. Coastal Bank is a, as you can see, it's a vegetated, mostly comprised of turf, grasses, some turf lawn, and then you get into some more of the heavily vegetated areas as you progress down the bank, leading to bordering vegetated wetland here, and then salt marsh, and then eventually shoestring bay. So it's a non-eroding coastal bank. It does not perform as a sediment source, eroding sediment for adjacent beaches or dunes. This is all salt marsh, land under ocean in this general area. So it provides a function of vertical buffer to storm damage and will be enhanced with the mitigation plantings. No other comments. Recommend to close an issue. Oh, with the, submission of a 3-year signed contract for monitoring and maintaining the mitigation plantings, which has already been discussed with the homeowner and they're fully aware.
Thank you, Drew. Okay. Do we have a motion?
All right. Now I'll make a motion for, Michael and Helen Sharp, trustees, 55 Shoestring Bay Road, to close the hearing and issue order conditions with the condition of submission of 3-year mitigation monitoring and maintenance contract.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll send these green cards in also.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
So, Tom, given your status as the vice chair, even though I know you're not voting on anything tonight, but since Paul, as the chairman, has to recuse himself from this hearing, you as vice chair can at least open the hearing and then call for a continuance because of the absence of a quorum, just like the previous 2 applications that we had to do something similar. But I think it warrants your announcement as, because Paul has to recuse himself and he's currently in the position of chairman, so.
Just for the continuance, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
How does that work too, though? If he's not appointed yet, or if we're waiting on his appointment?
Well, he wouldn't be voting, he would just be making the announcement. And then the remaining commissioners, you, Steve, and Marjorie would vote. But I don't think it's appropriate for Paul to open a hearing that he's recusing himself for. And Tom is still acting vice chair. He was only restricted from voting this evening, not from making announcements or comments or asking questions. So I think it's still appropriate that the vice chair, I could be wrong, I mean, that's just my interpretation of it. If he's not voting, then it should be fine.
So I guess my question more so is, what are we waiting on? Are we waiting on the reappointment and for you to take your oath? Is that the only thing that we're waiting on, or?
My 3 years was up. I have to go to the selectmen on Monday.
Okay, because I wouldn't want somebody acting without the authority and then us getting.
So
challenged later.
Sure, understood. I did run this by the town manager's office, and as long as Tom is not voting on anything, his participation otherwise is fine. And I think for this purpose, I don't see any issue. I think it's better to have Tom open the hearing as vice chair rather than the chairman who has a potential conflict.
No, I agree, and I think that as the secretary, I would also be willing to open up the hearing if Tom didn't feel comfortable enough without that technicality, I guess. So I'll leave it up to Tom.
Right.
Okay.
If you feel uncomfortable, then you do it.
Okay.
Okay. So now calling to order the hearing for 6:39 for Stephanie N. and Eric V. Meads, 68 Monomoskoye Road. This is a notice of intent. This hearing was asked to be continued to July 28th at what time?
6:18 p.m.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we continue the 6:39 hearing to July 28th at 6:18.
Okay,
Second.
Second. Okay, so motion was made by Stephen, second by Marjorie. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote. Marjorie?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. And Paul recuse?
Yeah, I'm not even participating.
Okay. So motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now calling the 6:42 hearing. Robert and Nancy Gorin, trustees, 32 Waterway. Proposed removal and management of invasive Phragmites, representative homeowner. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Micah Gordon. I'm the son of Nancy Gordon. Homeowners of 32 Walkway. And it's good evening to the commission. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our request for the proposed removal management of invasive Phragmites. These Phragmites currently at this address are expanding rapidly. The spread of the Phragmites is subdued by the vegetation at this location. We ask for your permission to properly eradicate these Phragmites and maintain environmentally friendly plantings. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
Well, I have a question. Who comes in and does that? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Who is the company or who is coming in to actually do the elimination of the Phragmites?
The individuals who will be doing that are a company called Bush Landscape.
Okay.
They're very familiar with these Phragmites and how to remove them so that they are, as kindly removed as possible.
Yeah.
But to have them stop spreading everywhere.
So I'm guessing, Drew, at some point you're going to tell us the chemical impact and that this is safe and all of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to turn it to you, Drew, so you can kind of take us through the process.
So this would be, and we met with Micah, the homeowners, and Greg Bush, owner of Bush Landscaping, on site just to review. These are the photos. Top left is the view of the home, 32 Waterway from the street. And then you can see here, the top right is the Phragmites infestation, which is really occupying most of the buffer zone with the exception of this pathway, gangway to the pier, and then into the BVW itself. And then it's actually, this shot here is off to the side where it's spreading into upland, which is even outside the wetland area, well outside the wetland area. So it's really, the Phragmites here is particularly aggressive, and it's a thick mat of rhizome root layer that will need to be addressed. So the typical protocol, there's two different options, for people to pursue when it comes to particularly Phragmites is they can mow to keep it under control but not eradicate, unless you mow like every single week during the growing season, which I have actually seen be successful. It just takes intense dedication to allow native vegetation to grow back. But the preferred method and the more secure method is the application of herbicides. It's a dilution of glyphosate, which is the active ingredient, which is the same herbicide you see people use for poison ivy and nuisance vegetation. It's even used in some aquatic herbicides. It's really just a dilution factor of the glyphosate, which is the active ingredient, depending on the size and scope and severity of the established invasive species. So it varies depending on the existing conditions. This is going to probably require, a pretty good dose of glyphosate active ingredient. It's usually Roundup or Rodeo are the common names for it. As far as application, that too can vary depending on the site conditions. And Greg is aware of everything I'm telling you. He's had experience in this, many companies that know how to get rid of Phragmites. So when you've got a thick stand like this in areas where there's no other vegetation, you can use a directed sprayer that has side panels, so it doesn't just broadcast spray everywhere. It actually targets the Phragmites specifically. And there's a time of year just before the dormancy season when it gets applied so that the root systems uptake the chemical at an appropriate time of year. And the other method is called the cut stem method, where you bunch together as much Phragmites as possible, tie it off with string or rope, cut off the tops, and use a droplet to apply the herbicide that way. That's recommended in areas of Phragmites that's mixed with native vegetation, so you don't want to broadcast spray over everything. And this has kind of a mix. Most of this is just 100% Phragmites, and there's nothing else to be concerned about as far as the application of the herbicide. But there are some areas, even if there's a garden, where obviously you don't want to spray glyphosate everywhere. You could say goodbye to the garden in its entirety. So it'll be a mix of the two. And it's typically a 3-year period when you're dealing with herbicide. You do the application, you see how the results come in, which usually is greater than 50% eradication. Then you go in and you do subsequent year spot treatment to get rid of the entirety of the Phragmites. Sometimes it's helpful to put down a black tarp during the growing season to prevent the sunlight exposure. It's a lot of work. It's an ongoing procedure. But typically the timeline is 3 years for complete eradication, and then you can go in and plant native species without worrying about Phragmites coming back after 3 consecutive years of lesser and lesser treatment. So that's basically the protocol for.
That's a very good education, Drew.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for your troubles, really.
I've never seen it quite this aggressive on a property. It's bad. I've seen it in Phragmites all over the place, but this just seems like especially thick.
I've never
just
seen
impenetrable
it that bad.
Barrier of Phragmites. So it's. I'm glad to see you guys are taking this action to do this. So.
Hey, jeez.
And we will. It's not typical to condition RDAs, but we will add in a condition of just the protocols that go along with typical Phragmites treatment. Even the contractor they've chosen is well aware of that, but it wouldn't hurt to put them into the.
And would we get reports of the success or failure?
Yes, that would be
ratio?
another condition. Yeah.
Wow.
I just have a question. How's this issue for the abutters or the neighbors? Is this the only property that has this issue, or is it coming in from the other sides?
It's a good, on the, so the left-facing side over here, the Phragmites is also pretty prolific on that side. It gets a little bit thinner over here, but yeah, it's present on both properties, abutting this property.
Have you spoken with the abutters as to your intent to do this, and have they shown interest in getting involved as well, or?
They've also shown interest to remove it. It's very aggressive, it's very thick, and, but they would be interested because it's, I think it might have started elsewhere, worked its way with us very quickly. And as you can see, it's moved up the property. We actually started
Oh, yeah.
we didn't pay much attention till it came to us. It was something else.
Right. Well, I could certainly reach out to the other abutting homeowners and see, maybe they can piggyback on this. I mean, the protocols would be the same.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if they don't, it's only going to
It's gonna-
spread right
it's gonna-
back
yeah,
anyway.
repopulate, exactly. You wouldn't want to go through all that effort just to have it come back.
We can definitely ask them.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep in touch with that and see if we can get the neighbors on board as well.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? This is an RDA. Is there a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for negative determination with the following conditions. Contractor to have a current state license for application of herbicide. Herbicide be the state-approved variety. Methodology of the application be cut stem droplet, no spraying. And then Drew, you mentioned the reports, right? Yearly reports or?
Yeah.
Yearly reports. Again, that's for Robert and Nancy Gorin, trustees, 32 Waterway.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion? There being none, I will call for a vote. Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you, folks.
Good luck.
Is this Mr. Gorin? Hi, how are you? Well, it was nice to have you here tonight. It was nice to have you here tonight. I felt like we didn't introduce you. It was good to hear from you. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to proceed with the
Yeah, the
post hearing? So I think with the absence of, let's see how this
Yeah,
affects.
Chad, you can't do any minutes at all.
Yeah, I'm just looking through to see
And Tom
who's here.
can't vote, so.
Tom, that whole trip, coming
Can't do
in,
414.
you were so good to be here.
Brian,
You can't do the minutes.
Steve,
Can't do 428.
Paul, Steve, Chad's not here, Chad's not there, just me and Tom. Can't do any of them.
No, so we'll have to table these minutes for the next meeting. Hopefully have a forum for those. Already went over the Red Brook Road culvert project update and Quashnet bylaw review subcommittee. Still looking into the revisions for Regulation 30, prevention of pollution. Just a couple of things. I don't know if any of the commissioners had a chance to watch the select board meeting this past Monday, where DEP came in and gave a presentation of their proposed regulations for dealing with Title V systems and nitrogen loading, the two options that were brought before the towns, this is not just for Mashpee, this is every town in the Commonwealth, are to have towns designated as nitrogen-sensitive areas, or to have a watershed, apply for a watershed permit, what they're calling a watershed permit. The main difference between the two is the nitrogen-sensitive area designation would automatically require that all septic systems be brought up to title to IA system component, make IA system components within a certain number of years. And I think the circumstances vary. I'd have to look into that more as far as what those specific criterion would be, but that would be the main component of a nitrogen designated nitrogen-sensitive areas. The watershed permit allows for a little more flexibility in terms of different methodologies for nitrogen removal, such as aquaculture, permeable reactive barriers, but also requiring upgrades to IA systems where deemed most appropriate. It seemed to me that the direction the board was probably likely to go in, which I think makes sense, is to pursue a watershed permit through DEP. Because you really want that flexibility. They're already having, a lot of aquaculture projects, and I just think it makes the most sense to pursue that. So my recommendation would be to hold off on finalizing Regulation 30 until the Board of Selectmen decide which direction they're going to go in with those options. But there are other articles that are being submitted, and I apologize for the last minute notice of this because the deadline to submit articles for the October town meeting was July 11th. It came up real fast.
Oh
it seems like we just got past the deadline for last May. And it popped up, so we were really scrambling with the help of DNR, Department of Natural Resources, to get those recommendations from the MVP program. Fuss and O'Neill, the consultants for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant, had made recommendations for a change to our bylaw to increase the buffer zone from the current 100-foot to 150. There was a suggestion of possibly expanding it to 300 feet. They felt this was a good kind of middle ground compromise. 300 feet would just take on an enormous amount of jurisdiction that we simply don't have the staff to take on. So I think this is much more manageable. So there's going to be a proposed change to our bylaw, sections 172-2 through 5, and everywhere the 100-foot buffer zone is referenced in the regulations, to change that to 150 feet. There are also proposed changes to Regulations 25, which is land subject to coastal storm flow, and Regulation 29, buffer zones and buffer strips. Specifically, and I'll send this out to you again. You should have had this previously for comment. I did send it out, but it's been a little while since we reviewed these. So in a nutshell, Regulation 25, looking at restricting additional development in the flood zone, in areas of the flood zone. That includes additions and new homes, reducing impervious surfaces in the flood zone, and having, for Regulation 29, buffer zones and buffer strips, having tree retention requirements. So any trees that are over 4 inches diameter at rest height, which is a forestry measurement for the overall circumference of tree size. Anything over 4 inches requires a 2-to-1 replacement mitigation ratio for trees taken out that are requested to be removed that are over 4 inches in DBH. If it's not feasible due to site constraints, there will be a fund, either use of the existing conservation donation fund of an appropriate amount to compensate as mitigation for the loss of trees where replanting of trees due to site conditions simply isn't feasible. If it is feasible, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. It's within 50 feet, 50 to 100, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, which I think makes perfect sense. It's a good way to come up with a mitigation strategy when it comes to trees specifically, or a suitable amount of shrub planting, again, if it's not feasible to plant trees given site conditions. So, and again, I apologize, this is just being brought to you after we submitted the article, but we didn't have a meeting in between, and we really wanted to get it in there for a placeholder, if nothing else.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean it can't be amended between now and October. There's plenty of time for that, but we wanted to get it in by the deadline, so. Any questions on that?
I think you made the right executive decision.
Appreciate that. We got results in. I did forward this out to everybody for the surveys for Johns Pond and Santua Pond in regards to invasive vegetation. Johns Pond, mostly successful in the first round, but there's roughly 3 acres remaining of spotted areas of milfoil that they're going to go in and treat this summer, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. That's under an existing order of conditions that we have, so we don't need to apply for a new permit for that. That's just ongoing treatment under the existing orders that were originally issued for this treatment of Johns Pond. They're valid for 3 years and still not even a year and a half old. Santuit is another story. They surveyed 22 acres of invasive milfoil and another invasive species called fanwort. Mostly milfoil, but mixed in with fanwort here and there. Mostly along the northern edge of the pond. So that's going to require another notice of intent to be submitted by our department to DEP to get that treatment going for Santuit. The other issue for Santuit, which is depending on your perspective on the use of the pond, there's an enormous explosion of a native pondweed called Elodia, which has grown to present, nuisance levels for recreational access to the pond. Literally paddling with a canoe or kayak is difficult through these thick mats of Elodia. It is a native species. The reason why it's growing so prolifically is because, ironically enough, the water clarity on Santua Pond is clear. There's no microalgae to film to block the sunlight, so the sunlight is penetrating the bottom sediments. You mix in the nutrient loading in the pond, and it's perfect conditions for aquatic growth. And it's native, so it's actually good for fish habitat, particularly juvenile fish. So depending on your perspective, if you like to recreate the pond, it's very, very much a nuisance factor. For the aquatic life, it's beneficial. But it has grown to such a level where I think you might look at control measures. So the consultant that we hired for Johns Pond made some suggestions on the possibility, if the commission were to want to pursue it, to do some thinning or, mostly thinning out of Elodia. And it could be a combination of either herbicidal treatment or hand pulling. So that's something that's a discussion. I'll probably have them attend this consultant attend one of the next 2 meetings, just so they can present what their findings are on how to deal with Santuit and what they recommend, and get your feedback on all that. So, any questions on that?
When they go in to reapply for Johns Pond, do they have to close the beaches for that?
So they go out and, as a matter of routine, they post on all public access points. And
okay.
Last time I went around to all the private beaches and posted the same. They print it out for me, and it has all of it. It's less than 24 hours, and the only public health restriction is when it comes to withdrawing water from the pond for irrigating crops, which is pretty much non-existent. But that's the only public health.
So we do give notification?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And lastly is the last 2 items, Chopchick Bog. Conservation restriction has finally been approved by the state. This is part of the whole process for the restoration, is we had to get a conservation restriction in place for, which is being held by the Native Land Conservancy. So that's nearly completed. It just needs to be finalized with the feedback from the state. That had been held up for a while because the state reviewer had retired the CRs, and they had to hire somebody new, get them acclimated, and then get this reviewed in addition to many dozens of others, I'm sure. And then ongoing work and data collection in preparation for the planning and permitting phase of the Chopchick Bog restoration, wetland restoration. And I haven't received any new updates. I don't know if anyone's seen anything new on the local comprehensive plan website, but I didn't receive anything from the planning department as far as any anything they wanted to update the commission on, so.
Their next workshop is Built Systems, I believe.
Okay.
And I think
It's on what?
Built Systems.
Yeah.
And I think it's the 28th?
The 28th?
No. It's
That's a Saturday, right?
Is that a Saturday? No.
That's
I'm thinking-
20th, that's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
That's our meeting.
I heard that number many times tonight. Maybe it's the Saturday prior to that. It's coming up.
We can find out and then just spread the word by email, just as a reminder for the commissioners, so.
23rd, I think. Is that a Saturday?
I'm so bad on dates, but they originally sent the whole, unless
the
they've
summer.
changed the schedule
Then
somewhere.
I don't know if you wanted to table because Chad's not here again for the
Yeah,
his
we
request
wouldn't have
for.
enough.
Well, yeah, I think he's not here, so.
Yeah.
To change his status from
His status.
full-time to associate.
We have the letter from him.
Yeah.
But he should be here for that.
I agree.
would think. Okay. So, yeah, we should table that.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to vote on that, to table it, or
We don't
just
have
leave
to.
it? Okay.
Yeah, we just table it. Oh, that's it? That's all I got.
Okay.
What's this binding
Slowly
violation?
packing up.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry. One
more
last,
thing.
one last item is that, this is just FYI to the commissioners. There was a recent violation that was especially egregious. A homeowner on John's Pond using a front-end loader to deposit sand at a property that had no beach nourishment permit, and shoveling the sand, not only on, placing it on the shoreline, but shoveling it into the pond with the loader in the water.
I'm sorry, I
This is
shouldn't
the
laugh.
second offense
It was
on this.
like
He
so
fined
stupid.
previously for a previous offense of doing the exact same thing for his own property across the pond from this current property. As you know, the commissioners are aware, John's Pond contains a few species of freshwater mussel, which are considered state-listed threatened or endangered. And I reported the violation to Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, and I sincerely hope that they take enforcement action and fine this person for a possible take of endangered species. Because this area out in front of this particular home is a sandy substrate, which is conducive to freshwater mussel habitat. And given the weight and size of the machinery that was in the water, and I don't even know how many times, but when I got to the site, the water was cloudy and silted, which also means the sand was not washed, which means it came from an unknown source, and we don't even know what the composition of the sand was. So this is a serious violation. We'll be issuing a fine as well, and it's important to, when this type of thing happens, after being cited with fines previously for the exact same violation, that this person be put on notice, not only with the state, but with us and other town agencies as to what happened. Just a willful disregard of jurisdiction after being fined and notified on a previous violation is simply no excuse. So I have zero, sympathy in this regard. So,
So obviously, they're just trying to create a beach where there is none.
right, it's just a grassy backyard, kind of relatively unmaintained, but then a direct transition to water. No, there's no wetland in between or anything like that. It's just a upland to water, and they deposited the sand over the grass leading up, and then shoveled sand into the water. For what reason, I don't know, just to, I guess, better feel on the feet or something like that. I don't know. All I know is I just saw a plume of silt all around this area from that activity, which tells me the sand wasn't washed. And we're going to have to find out where it came from, and if the state deems that the sand should be removed or whatever actions are warranted moving forward. And the homeowners are also going to be looking at a fine because they recently got administrative approval to take out a hazardous tree, so they were fully aware of jurisdiction. Then this happened. So again, they can't claim any sort of ignorance any more so than this gentleman who was the contractor. So just a bad situation all around. We thank the other neighbors who reported it to us.
Well,
All right. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the hearing. I'll close the meeting.
Okay.
I think that's the right words.
That's it, yeah?
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. No other discussion? A call for a vote, Brian?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Oh, don't go away. Sign papers.